Welcome back to the Four Horsemen. Let's have some fun. This is Tom from Spork Syndicate, together with Paul from Diecast Graveyard, Andrew from Maple Leaf Customs, and Skip from Crossroad Diecast Speed Shop. We are the Four Horsemen. This month we're building a vehicle for a Wasteland warlord, and we welcome Christopher from Gaslands, NorCal as our guest horseman. I'm gonna need some horsepower and some luxury. This pair of Hot Wheels Way Too Fasts will provide the power for this pair of Majorette Cadillac stretch limousines. Each limo has just one post to drill. The chassis hooks into the rear bumper. Let's see what we've got here. A pretty sharp body with 4 opening doors. A complex and brittle window and headlight piece featuring a sliding moonroof. A detailed interior and separate dash, and a long base. After drilling the Way Too Fasts, I use my X-Acto saw to cut away the motors because that's all I'll need from them. Since I'm going to need a large engine bay, I cut off the nose of one of the limos. That's beeswax on the blade of my jewelry saw. It extends the life. But not forever. This is the plan. To stack both limos into one large Giga-Limo, similar to the Giga-Horse from Mad Max Fury Road or my own Giga-Speeder. The limo bodies are too big to fit into my jar of citrus strip, so I have to strip the paint using a brush. And then August got complicated. Here we are, set of Written in Blood. This is Lou, the director. That is Jason, the first assistant director. And today's pocket car is a Nissan Skyline. And it's also free at Friday. Lou, would you please free the car?
Free the car. Oh, it's purple.
Yeah. There you go. He's so pretty.
It's so pretty.
Don't you have a film to make?
What is that?
I'll go back to it.
Blue, take 2, marker.
You ready to
We are ready to shoot scene number 1
let's start the movie?
on the 15th day.
Yeah. You ready for your close-ups, Alan?
Yes, you are. Look at Sally. Look at Sally.
Hey, Tom here, on location at Written in Blood. We're in the shed set. Hailing. Hey, it's hailing. What do you think of the hail? Yep, look at that. Ready, Jackson? Doing your job for you.
Road trip.
We're on set. And we're on set. It soon became clear that I was too tired after shooting days to come home and build my warlord's Giga-Limo. So I built a workbench away from home just off set during the final week of shooting. This is actually the first table I began customizing cars on, which I harvested from my 2004 Honda CR-V after it was totaled. Now, I'm fabricating the parts I made. This means fitting things that weren't designed to go together, so there's cutting and grinding, which is pretty challenging when they're filming a movie in the next room. A quick trip to replenish my JB Superweld light curing glue helps things move along. Before mating the two bases, I bent the last segment to accentuate the high-backed rake of the vehicle. The die-cast metal of an older car gets brittle after a couple of decades, especially when you start cutting, grinding, and drilling holes into it. So I fortified the elongated base with two solid metal pipes. It's coming together. This is where we do a little time travel. Here I'm fabricating a holder for the mega bumper of the Giga-Limo, which features the crank from a pencil sharpener, which will come up later. While I use a lot of glue, to make sure things stay together, I use JB Weld. And I made too much, so I start reinforcing the base, which was only held together by glue at this point. But I still had more. so I started to close the gaps on the stacked bodies, and then mixed another batch to finish that step. I used the crankcase of the pencil sharpener as a mega drive shaft to handle the torque demands of the 4 V8 engines up front. Originally, this was going to be a 5-axle, 10-tire monstrosity, but believe it or not, the combined length of the vehicle couldn't accommodate 5 axles. So instead, there's 2 large tires from a Hot Wheels monster truck in the rear and 3 pairs of just trucks 4x4 tires in the front. It creates the chaotic look of a land yacht on top of another land yacht. When I work on a show, the rest of my life slows to a crawl or gets put on hold. Also, my shed hosted a climactic scene of the movie, which required me to empty it out and separate things that would be thrown out and donated from what would eventually go back inside. It also yielded a treasure trove of bits and pieces that would make excellent parts for builds or dioramas down the road, and they all ended up piled high on my workbench. While I dig out, might as well tell you the Giga-Limo story. Following the concept of the Giga-Horse in Fury Road, in a wasteland with barely one of something to reinforce the mythology of your status, the warlord has 2 somethings stacked on top of one another. Since a limousine is how the wealthy travel, this pair of liveries have been converted into a castle on wheels. It will have a luxurious red velvet interior with gold trim, and beyond the expanded passenger compartment will be an armored sleeping quarter for longer missions. Above and all around, there will be firepower to lead or repel an attack. Guns point in all directions to help create a wide berth on the vehicular battlefield. Let's wrestle with that pencil sharpener. This thing fell off the table and cracked. I glued the plastic shell back on more than once, but it never held. Its true calling has come. Despite the poorly constructed shell, the innards of this thing were built to last. I'm suddenly remembering all those wall-mounted pencil sharpeners that didn't have a cover back in school. Just a trash can on the floor beneath to catch the shavings. After a bunch of attempts, the axle inside just pops out. And now, I have my front bumper. I use my altered brake vise to pop off the rear axle of the Hot Wheels monster truck. The Just trucks weren't so friendly. You just have to keep twisting and pulling. Until the hub finally lets go. Originally, I removed all the opening doors to leave room inside the body, and now I have to plug a bunch of holes. Styrene, plastic, and glue do the trick. The windows get mesh. The warlord is behind a bulletproof glass partition, but the drivers and gunners need protection as well. To blend the lines of one body into another, I cut matching styrene pieces. One of the panels in the upper body gave out early in the build, so I'm fighting some asymmetry here. For the sake of story, I believe the Giga-Limo absorbed artillery fire and kept on rolling. It just needed a small alignment. Another dry fit, and things are falling into place. She's got a lot of carriage, but she'll do damage. I had very little clearance between the wheels, frame, and chassis, so I glued the axles down and reinforced them with plastic tubes to keep them in place. The rear axle is nested into the pencil sharpener housing and held in place by a pair of leaf springs crafted from 3D printed sprues sent to me by Jim Silva. Thanks again, Jim. Because it's the wasteland, I modeled the engine bay off the Giga-Horse, with a series of pipes and a big honkin' turbo intake connected to the 4 blowers. It was a tight fit. Tight enough, in fact, that I didn't need to glue the chassis to the base. I clip it into the back and snug it in the front and it stays. That was a lot of fabrication. I really need to get a 3D printer. But here she is, a blank canvas, ready to get dirty. I went with flat black. The accent color is going to be blood red. Detail paint begins with some chrome, which will almost immediately be painted over or weathered into a dull state. Sandstorms, bullets, and bumping and banging other vehicular behemoths tear into the finish and invite rust to the surface. Along with the paint, I use a lot of makeup to create dust and rust flakes to make everything smooth appear ruddy, cracked, and used. Built for a warlord to project strength on the battlefield and generate maximum carnage, the Giga-Limo is ready to roll. This was a blast. If you participated, I hope you had fun too, and I hope you send a 16:9 glamour shot of your Wastelands Warlord build to fourhorsemendiecast@gmail.com. And when you share your build on social media, use the hashtag #4HorsemenDiecast. Next month's theme is Tow Truck, and the guest horseman is full custom diecast. I look forward to see what you come up with. For the Four Horsemen, this is Tom. Let's do this again real soon.